and welcome to the Ended Up in Vegas podcast. I'm Nikki.
I'm Megan.
Today we're going to be talking to you about the Parade of Homes in St. George, Utah that we went to this past week. All of the mega mansions and beautiful designs that we have seen. So we got there on a weekday. We spent 2 days looking at the homes. We didn't look at all of them.
Yeah, there were about 30 houses, so we had to kind of prioritize.
Right.
Even with 2 days, that's a lot of houses to go and see. So we started looking through. They developed an app for this purpose, and then they have a website, so you could go through and view videos and floor plans and kind of decide which ones you wanted to go see.
Yeah, the app was not our friend.
That was not my favorite experience. I think that it was definitely buggy and created a lot of frustration in trying to use the mapping feature, and I think that could have been a little bit more thought through.
Just in case anyone who is on that side is listening. But it did help us narrow down the homes that we wanted to go see and things that we thought we could probably pass up. So the first homes that we saw were in a master plan community called Desert Color. And this is St. George's way of allowing vacation rentals in the area, which is so big in southern Utah. So a couple of the homes that we saw in there were insane. Like multi-level, $5-6 million homes that slept, I think, 50 people. And they were built around a large lagoon. Mm-hmm. What did you think about the lagoon?
It was not as large as I would have expected. It was nice. I definitely had some sticker shock when we went in there, both in the size of the homes and the number of bedrooms. I think we were in a townhouse, was one of the first ones that we looked at. No, we looked at a house first, and then we went into a townhouse, and you were like, I heard someone else say this is 7 bedrooms, and I was like, what? Mm-hmm. And then you start going through, but they really are designed for vacation rental. The lagoon was nice. I think it would be a nice feature, maybe a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
It felt like Wet and Wild.
Without the slides and rides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and especially because, at the price point that they're at, a $5 million unit, even when you go in, the selling point on these units was that you buy them as you get a fractional share with, however many other people. But if you're going into a property with 7 or 8 other individuals, I think we both agreed. We want a property in ocean, ocean views, not lagoon views.
For people who don't really know, St. George is about 2 hours from Las Vegas, and it's kind of at the edge of Zion National Park. There's Bryan Head. There's the whole Dixie Mountain Range. So there's a lot of skiing and snow sports and outdoor stuff, but there isn't really, when I asked him, I was like, do you have any waterfront properties? And he was like, yeah, we have the lagoon. And I was like, there's not really any lakes. There's not an ocean. And so when you start looking at, even the townhomes were in the, upper $1 million range, 1.5, 1.7 to 2 million. I was like, and there's no ocean and there's no waterfront property. Like that took a little bit of, it was a little bit of a mind bender for me.
Yeah. Maybe we'll adapt to it later on because they're on the 3rd year of building out this 15-year master plan. So there's going to be so much more to come and obviously a ton more opportunity in that area. And, we all know that during COVID, people from California went to Utah like crazy. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of those buyers are there. A lot of them are very accustomed to paying that price. Mm-hmm. And, for the weather and the proximity that you get to Bryan Head, to Zion, to, the mountains of Utah and just all of the beauty around.
Yeah, you've got Bryce Canyon that's not far away. Right. You've got Lake Powell. There's a lot of outdoor recreation out there. And there are a lot of people, from what I'd heard, there was a lot of people relocating to the St. George area from California and from other places during the pandemic because there is so much kind of just at your back door.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, St. George has expanded so much, in just the past couple of years. And even right before COVID, it really started to boom. And these homes that they're building are insane. I mean,
there was definitely an oh shit moment when we were walking because we were, going in and there were bunk rooms. And, you see this a lot on Pinterest and different places. And I've seen them in magazines. I think I've seen maybe 1 or 2 here, but one bunk room, vacation rental, but there were like houses that would have 2. And I think, was there 3 bunk rooms in some of the houses? So there's, 3 or 6 bunk beds, and then you go into another room and there's more bunk beds, and it was just like, what?
And if you're listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube, when we talk about a bunk room, like it's not a set of bunk beds.
No.
It's like an entire room full of custom made, like full carpentry bunk beds.
Yeah.
Like full size or queen size bunk beds.
Yeah. There were a couple rooms that had twins, but then there were quite a few that had full and queen size, and like not just one, but like 6 bunk beds in one room, all built in, really elaborate iron steps and ladders, and really beautifully done.
Yeah. So we saw a lot of incredible designs. Let's take you through what some of these homes looked like. So the key to all of these homes is that they all have 1 million windows.
Yes. And finishes and detail, and they were all different. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of uniqueness in the architectural. Like, we went into this first neighborhood and we were looking around, and there were houses with brick and, smooth stucco, and there was like roof pitches and just a lot of variety in the exterior elevations, and a lot of windows in the houses, tall ceilings.
Yeah,
a lot of unique features.
Yeah, and even, down to the texture, the architecture, the architecture of all of the homes is so different than what we have in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, why do we live in stucco boxes? Why can't we have style?
Yeah.
But there's so much architecture, and the level of construction that they build, because they have so many smaller builders there, is just hands down.
The finish level, the details, the uniqueness of the homes really blew me away. It was like, because that's I love houses. I love different houses. I love traditional architecture, and we don't have a lot of that here. So it was like water in the desert for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of the cool ideas, like in the first house, we saw those cabinets in the kitchen that didn't have a backing on them, that were just...
that was so unique, and they were metal cabinets with glass. They were glass uppers, and there was no backing, so the tile backsplash went up from the counter to, I don't know if that's the ceiling height or just from the eyebrow, but it was really neat. I don't think I've seen anybody do. I've seen people do that in other types of kitchen cabinets and furniture, but not quite like that.
Mm-hmm. And I loved that was the first example of how white subway tile is still going strong. I know some people hate it, but
I love subway tile.
Like it.
I have it in my house.
Yeah,
you have it in your house, right?
That house was the one with the tub that
floating bathtub
was floating, which I was like, "What's the weight capacity on that?" And they're like, "Oh,
that is a great question, but don't climb into it."
Yeah, don't climb into it or add water. But it was beautiful. And then I loved how that bathroom had that swoop chandelier in between the two larger mirrors. And something that we saw a lot of was like those larger format tiles. And, sometimes when I'm designing bathrooms with clients, they're like, is that too much tile? I'm like, have you ever been in a hotel bathroom and said, there's too much tile in here? Because generally they cover every wall.
Every surface, yeah.
And that is, just a really impeccable treatment. Makes everything feel a little bit more unique. But going back to the texture of the walls, they do things a little different there in the mountains of Utah.
Yeah, I wonder if there is a intended purpose, but they do this sort of like veining, I guess, for lack of a better word, on the ceilings. We saw it in a few houses.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's watching The Last of Us, but it looks like the like a growth.
Yeah, Jumanji. In the drywall is basically when it, when the branches grow through, it kind of
or like reef coral, maybe it's kind of got that same effect.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's more distracting to my eye than orange peel.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a fan of that. I think, obviously when they style these units, they pick great designers who have really great taste, and everything was styled, impeccably. One thing about those units is that they all have like a spa on the upper deck, and it was really fun. We were watching a gentleman play air hockey. So it is a multi, like age kind of place where, and that was one of the units that I had mentioned, kind of felt like an LA townhouse.
Yes.
Where it was, I think, 3 or 4 levels.
Yeah, I think 3 to 4 levels, each of them. Some of them were more than others. They had multiple levels of living, so you would have like a living room on the main level, but you'd go up and you'd have a loft and a game room, and then an outdoor patio. or a balcony that was not just a balcony, but like oversized.
Right.
There was, you could tell that there was a lot of room for kind of entertaining space.
Yeah, lots of wet bars and kitchenettes and oversized lofts, lots of movie rooms. Oh, the movie rooms. The movie rooms could be an entire topic.
And we might, because I've never wanted a movie room. I've seen them in houses for years, but we went into one and there was, I think King Kong was playing, and I was like, I've never wanted a movie room in my life, but I'm sold. I need to have one.
Yeah, I think that was the one that actually had like it had the lower panel, like the wall, like the false wall behind it. So you walk into the room and it looks like you're walking into a movie theater. Essentially, you go left or right, but there's like a wall in between all of the seating. And
was there a bar like right in the entryway? Maybe there was someone standing there, so I don't know if we saw behind it, but there might have been like a bar at the entry, and then there were steps going up. And yeah, it was completely obscured. And I'm assuming that you could put doors on that, or there were doors, I don't remember, but you could close it off completely. I loved that.
Yeah. I think you could easily play hide and seek in any of these homes and have a lot of fun.
Very family friendly. That was something that like really exuded from all of the design, but not in the sense of like, it was still elegant, but also family friendly. I think that marriage of family friendly and still having a high level of taste.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Well, and, we all know that people, in Utah notoriously have big families. And so there were some homes that just had something for everyone. It was basketball courts and rock climbing walls and
slides.
Tennis and slides. And there was one house that had a whole stage.
Yes. Had like a little theater stage that connected to like a landing that went down to the slide into the basketball court where the rock wall is. There was a reading nook in one that I really, really liked.
That was that same house.
Yeah, it was the same house. It was this huge, and it had like a tree for books. It was just a lot of really well thought out spaces for families.
Yeah. Still seeing those floating shelves. They're still going strong. We saw a lot of leathered stone. So they did like a polished quartzite on the back counters, and a lot of the islands were in a leathered quartzite, which gave it more of a textured appearance. Lots of different plaster finishes, from fireplaces to hoods, different movement. I wasn't so crazy about one of them that had just like a little bit too much gloss. The scale was
not off.
Yeah,
for the size of the kitchen.
Yeah, it was like a very large hood and then a very small opening above the range, which I wasn't jiving with. And then there was I don't mean to be a downer. I'm gonna be a downer. I love Becky Owens. I love her designs, and she has impeccable taste. She has fantastic taste. I wasn't crazy about the unit that she designed. The tile that she chose in the primary that also went into other bathrooms in the home, I wasn't a fan.
It took me back to like the 90s.
It was like a 12 by 12 tile, and then she repeated it in the shower floor in probably like a 6 by 6.
Yeah, I would say 6 by 6.
And it threw my eye off. And it just, when designers come into these parade homes, now they are like jamming to be the ones who are, seeing the notoriety from thousands of people going through these homes. And so I just thought, man, some of them really brought it. And I was just kind of like,
I was impressed with some of there was a couple smaller houses that we saw that I liked. The tile blew me away, and the different variations of tile. There was a lot of tile in these houses, and I got really excited about it. Some of the mixing and matching that they did was really inspiring. But the couple of those houses, I was like, scratched my head a little bit at some of the choices that were made.
Yeah, and it's comfortable to sit here and say that when I'm not Becky Owens,
Yeah, and it's not
level of fame at all.
And again, a lot of it's personal preference, but I mean, we were talking about a $5 million house. I was like, that's interesting.
Lots of workout rooms, multiple gyms actually. So
one of our favorite houses had 2 gyms.
2 gyms. That it still is my favorite house because of that personal gym.
Everything about that house. I mean, I might have chosen slightly different finishes or maybe a little bit of a different color on the cabinets, but like, I can't say that there was anything about that house I didn't love.
Yeah.
Just had a really grand staircase.
Well, so when I was in the entry, I turned the corner before you.
Yeah.
And I just saw the clean lines of that kitchen, and I was like, Megan's gonna flip.
Well, I love white oak.
Yeah,
like
it's good timing.
Just
You've lived in the right time.
I don't know that I did before.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in the era of where everything was oak. We were in a
we both did honey-toned oak.
Yeah. But the grand entryway, the iron railing, it was just really unique and beautiful. Wood paneled walls, just things we don't see here in Vegas very often.
All of the grid paneled glass was just phenomenal. And then those gorgeous cabinets that were built into the walls between the kitchen and the dining room, like we couldn't get enough of that.
It just reminded me a lot of like the homes that were built in the 30s and the 40s,
yes,
maybe even
very
20s.
Craftsman style.
Yeah, where they had built-in dressers or built-in, I don't know if you'd call it a curio cabinet, but it was just like a china cabinet that was built in. This had really, really neat like antique hardware. That island in that house, I mean, I'm fairly practical in nature, so as much as I love this house, we're walking through it, and I'm just imagining keeping a house like this tidy. And I was like, that is a large island. What do you think that is, like 12 feet, maybe more?
Yeah, I would say probably 13, 14. And I loved how on one side they did the open shelves. And you know, that's another thing I think people overthink, like the symmetry of their space when they plan something custom like that. And I loved that it was just on the one side and it didn't throw the balance of anything off. And everything was just so timeless. And the brass, I mean, be still my soul, like the polished brass and then the brushed brass with the stainless. It was just so classic.
Lots of windows, lots of black windows. That's something we saw. I think we only saw one house in our entire time there that had white windows.
Yeah.
I mean, everything here is white windows, but they were all black iron, framed windows. I love that.
And that's something that you can do, even in a home in Vegas, if you want to customize the interior of your space, your windows can be black on the inside and white on the outside. You don't have to change them. Some windows in homes here are actually better, they were better made 15 or 20 years ago than they are now. So you don't necessarily need to replace them, just changing them. Oh, and another thing. So in the bathroom in that house, there was a floating tub in front of the shower that was the brass grid panel glass that was 3-sided, the shower. That was like the steam shower. But I loved that the tub was freestanding, but it was built out.
Yeah.
So they put it was encased in oak, and then they put this beautiful marble top around.
It was like a beautiful piece of furniture.
Yeah, so it was really an undermounted tub that they just put a surround on, and it played perfectly as a floating tub with more function, which is what I feel like is my problem with floating tubs.
Yeah.
Like, this is great for looks and for, being a minimalist, but where do you put your bottles? Like, I don't think that people understand these things when they, actually install a freestanding tub in their home. It's like you need a place to put stuff down.
Well, it's nice too. Like if you want to sit on the edge and, I don't know, do anything. Like if you need to sit on the edge or use it for a place to prop your leg up, or, you're probably not going to get dressed in there because you have a closet that's large enough, but it gives you a place to sit or, make use of that space instead of it just kind of hogging it up.
Yeah, for sure. And then, all of the spaces that we saw in closets and pass-throughs to closets and other pieces of like the primary bedroom where there were washers and dryers. Like, you wouldn't need to leave your primary bedroom. You can just live there.
I think there was like three laundry rooms in that house, including the primary bedroom next to that. Whatever, because there was a gym next to the basketball court in that house, but then there was also that room in the front. Did that house have a sauna? I might be getting it confused with another one, but I feel like that house had a sauna.
Yeah.
And then you would go in and there was this incredible fitness room that, would have been perfect for a yoga studio. And it had like a pitched roof and tall ceiling.
Pilates Cadillac tower that is, you need ceiling height for.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Lots of windows. Whereas we looked at another house that had the primary bathroom up front. And then like your bathroom window is looking out the front of the house, which I thought would have been less desirable than having a room like that.
Yeah. The floor plans were, for the most part, they were really like great and intuitive to how you live. And then, one thing that Pulte actually did a good job of this, and some models that I know of, is making the laundry room attached to the primary bedroom, even if it wasn't in it. So there are a lot of people with that option. And I love that too, kind of wrap around.
We did that a lot in Woodside and some of the other builders that we work through. So it gives you you don't have to have a washer and dryer in your primary closet, but you can get right to it.
Right. Oh my gosh, if you want to see a big laundry room, going back to multiple laundry rooms, if you need a laundry room the size of your bedroom, then go to Utah.
I feel like this is the house that had the brick ceiling, whichever one this one was.
That was the one with the glacier glass.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of finishes, but I liked that home had something, like I said, for everyone. It was a very like multi-use home for a big family with lots of kids, different genders. Like they had a whole basement of like LED lit bedrooms that I thought would be really cute for, a pair of boys down there or girls. But
yeah, this is the one that had the rock climbing wall and the basketball court. And I think there was a gym, was there an apartment over there? Was this the one that had the apartment on the backside?
Yeah. So many generations could live in that home.
Yeah.
And the pretty spaces were pretty. And the, big spaces were big, like that basketball court, and that rock climbing wall area was huge.
Do we want to talk about the house we didn't love?
Yes. Let's do it.
What was that show that you had that
For $5 million, would you like a house that you can see the reflection of yourself in the tile? It was like this high polished black tile. It was actually very comfortable underfoot though. I mean, it was a beautiful home. It wasn't for everyone. I think that there are certain aesthetics that are just more geared to, I think some people would have loved that home. We just didn't care for it ourselves.
Yeah, it wouldn't be choices that I would personally make. I could see someone liking it. A lot of the colors schemed reminded me of like kind of 90s black with white and, light woods. There were some interesting choices in some of the wood details. And the lighting, they did triangle-shaped mirrors in the primary bathroom, and I think it would have worked. I wasn't really crazy about the alternating colors on the LED lights. It was a really interesting choice of porcelain tile. But for the right person, I mean, I could see somebody making those choices.
I think if I could describe this home, it would be if mid-century 1960s had a baby with the 1990s.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of we want to be technology driven and lighting driven and very showy. A lot of the items were just very showy. I mean, I wouldn't even say avant-garde because it was just a lot texture, pattern, color, LED lighting, and then just all of the fixtures that went with it were really unique.
And we skipped the basement, so if that tells you anything about how much we liked the house,
we were let's go.
We've seen enough here, so
yeah.
And then the next house that we saw was such a surprise. It was on the list, and we had seen it on Rissa's Instagram feed, and it was a really unique house, very mid-century modern. I felt like I was transported back in time. There was a lot of wood, a lot of details.
Yeah, people were like, I'm getting a 70s vibe. I'm like, that's mid-century modern.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like it was a little bit earlier than even 70s. Little Jetsons,
Yeah.
It had a built-in banquette, which I love. Like a banquette in a kitchen is one of my favorite things. That felt very 50s or 60s.
You know what's funny is I was actually chatting with somebody about this home today, and one of the things that they pointed out was the floor plan, which I don't think it was really designed to match how they designed the interior of the space. Because mid-century is, the most notable things are geometric lines and circles. So playing with those two elements. And I think that they tried to compensate the furniture with a lot of the rounded components of the furniture and the finished tiles. But some of the rooms and spaces architecturally didn't speak to being mid-century. So, and then also the kitchen was not really connected to the main living space. It was connected to a very small flex. They had it staged as a music space. But it was just down the hall through that amazing arch of walnut.
That I got yelled at for touching.
Yeah. Don't touch signs everywhere. Please do not touch.
There had to have been 150 to 200 don't touch signs.
Megan was so annoyed in this home. Why are you letting us in here if we can't touch anything, if we can't walk into a room?
They had everything roped off, a lot of rooms. I mean, I get it to a certain extent. You don't want people touching everything. But it almost took away from the ability, at least for me, I don't think for you. And I think things that annoy us are all unique. But it really almost took away for me the ability to enjoy being in the house. because, not being told not to touch anything and signs being everywhere. So when you're taking photos and video, it just was like, it was so much.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 signs on everything. It was just a little.
Yeah, no, it was certainly annoying, but it was like repugnant to Megan. Like it was maddening.
Well, when I got yelled at by the kid,
you're like, who are you to tell me not to touch?
He was like, excuse me, don't touch. And there's a big ass sign on it that says don't touch. I felt about this tall, but I was like, just fine.
Yeah. My actual favorite, going back to the first bunk bed, the first bunk room that Megan saw, she walks into the room. I'm like not with her. I'm through the hallway. She walks into the room and I hear, holy shit.
I think that was the second bunk room in that house, though. I think there was one on another level. So when we went to a second level and there was another room of bunks, I know, it was just like, holy shit.
I was like, Megan, be quiet. There are Mormons here.
Holy? Yeah, that was probably not my best choice.
It was just like the pure reaction that you had to seeing so many bunk beds in a room. It was just hilarious. But yeah, going back to the mid-century modern house, I loved the tiles. Yeah. Like the tiles were right up my alley.
Yeah.
And I called you to that shower that was like a half, it was like a semicircle, but it was kind of squared off too in the back so that they could fit the subway tiles in just right. And honestly, you walk through a house, if you're not in this industry, you walk through a house like that, and if it's not your style, you're like, yep, not into it. But when you actually can appreciate the finish work and that a design like that has reached the execution level that it needed to rise to in order to fulfill the concept, then that's a whole different story. And all the tile work, like even upstairs in that primary bathroom, when I posted that on social media, people were like, I can't imagine. Daisha was like, I can't imagine how uncomfortable that tub of tile they laid, these small 1 by like probably 3 tiles all the way down the tub, and how uncomfortable that would be to lay in. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, I can imagine that, but also it was laid so well.
Meticulous.
Yeah. I mean, nothing ran together wrong.
No.
There was no error in the tile.
I mean, and if you know much about tile work, I mean, even just getting regular floor tile to be smooth is nothing short of a labor,
Right.
So to see just the level of detail, that whole house, and I feel like almost every house that we went to, that was one thing that really impressed me, was the quality of the craftsmanship that we saw from house to house. It was really, and that like when right now we're dealing with a lot of supply shortages and material shortages, and so it cannot be easy for them to get these things in and get them ready for this parade. But the level of detail and the way that they were executed, I think, was well done.
Yeah. And then the next house that we went into, I thought it was going to be your favorite. Like we walked in and when we walked into the mid-century home, you were like, I'll take that house over there. And
the outside was very, very much my style. Big, 12-foot maybe doors, glass doors, had a very traditional architectural style. But then you go in and it was such a surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just mid-century glam. Like I was like, this is my heaven.
Yeah.
Just everything was cohesive from the architecture to the design to all of the finishes. Everything was cohesive.
Yeah, nothing felt out of place, even though the architectural style of the house itself was very traditional. It really all worked. It was like that glamorous level of a lot of like crescents and circular shapes, and it had a round, kind of an oval.
Yeah.
Was that the one that had a pill-shaped island? And just a lot of really unique features.
And even when you walk in, I mean, the minimalism in that house was really expressed. It just wasn't overdone. But it was just so beautiful and simple and restful and stylish. Like it had so much character without being over the top. And I think that that's actually like a good juxtaposition. The fact that it's next door to the house that was so, in your face a little bit more mid-century. Even though I loved so many elements of that house, I think it just goes to show that you don't need to be crazy. Like in every selection that you have in your house, you don't need the thing that you gravitate to most, because if you do that, there are going to be a bunch of things that, fight each other. So some things need to be simple for other things to stand out.
Yeah.
So one of the favorite houses that we walked through the last two houses we saw. One was smaller, and it was like,
you know what's crazy about this is that when I went to go post the reel for that one, I was like, this little house. And then I looked up and it's like 3,300 square feet.
Yeah.
So I was really blown away because it felt very cozy and it didn't feel as large as that. But I think after going through 12,000 and 11 and 10,000 square foot houses, it's just a different experience. But that house was such a surprise.
Yeah. And to most people, it's like, oh, that's an attainable dream.
Yeah.
You know, we can do that and not break the bank. But even that house was what, 1.4 million? And so it had the kitchen that was like, again, not super huge, but really great finishes, thoughtful design. The upstairs had a big amount of room. I loved the arch. We both loved the arch bedroom.
Arch in that bedroom, the way they built that in. There was a really nice kind of, it was an enclosed, I guess it's kind of like a loft, but really like a sofa room or whatever. What would you use that for? It wasn't really a movie theater, but it was like a nice lounge area, but it had a bar in there, and that was really nice.
Yeah, and I loved that it was super moody, and there was like the
paneling.
mirrored.
I love that.
Yeah, that was a really like comforting movie room where you can just see, you know, as a family how you would live there.
Really nice bedrooms. I love the plaster in that house. So the kind of formal living room or sitting area was plastered, and they had the plaster over the hood.
Yeah, the biggest winner for us was a home without tree branches textured on the ceiling.
Or any texture. I'm a big fan of smooth texture, and I could live with orange peel and knock down we do knock down texture in most houses here, and I loathe it.
All I want to do is burn down my house and start again with level 5 finish.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hard to execute, but it's just so worth it.
And then the very last house, we were headed out of town. We were about to wrap things up. And Megan's like, I really want to see this house. And I was like, all right, cool. Tell me where to go. I'm driving. She's navigating. And we pull up to this house that is like
insane.
Yeah, that's the only word.
Yeah.
It's redundant, but it was insane.
This was the most insane house that we went into, I think.
20-foot ceilings and 17-foot windows. So It's like... Oh, you just went talking about texture to talking about windows. Like, who needs walls?
Right. There was so much in that house, especially I think considering that we were like, it was like the last ditch, you know, we're going to go look at this house. We didn't really have high expectations. The fireplace in that house, I mean, from the entryway to the fireplace, what would you even call that? I mean, it's very almost like Pueblo style kind of. It's
yeah, the fireplace was definitely, it almost had like a mid-century vibe to it, in the way that the fireplace sat low to the ground. So it wasn't elevated, very traditional style fireplace with this huge, basically, you know, a hood over it almost, and had like a rocky texture with this really beautiful plaster finish that was just really classic and not overstated. And then it ran into the beams that were on the ceiling, and then across from that space was a kitchen that was my daughter's first words were, "Is that a store or a house?" Because it's just such a grand space, and when you're looking at this huge kitchen, it almost looked like an industrial kitchen,
like you're in a hotel.
You could
that's how it felt. I mean, this house felt so large and so grand, but floor to ceiling windows all throughout. There were windows kind of separating there was like a formal living room with a piano in it, right? And there were windows all the way around. But yeah, that kitchen was, I mean, I'm going to have to find another word for my vocabulary, but it was insane. Yeah. It was such a surprise. But well done. And you kind of commented on cabinet height. I just love everything that they did with the space, the lighting, the pendants, the quartzite right on the countertops, the range, everything was just so meticulously done.
The hood actually mirrors the fireplace, so it's on opposing walls, but they had a very similar finish. And so I just thought that was just a very lovely way of uniting those two spaces together. And then on the opposite side of the kitchen, there were cabinets it was a total built-in, and then it led through double doors in the middle. These beautiful, iron doors to another pantry, as if the kitchen wasn't big enough for you.
We walked through, and there's sort of almost like a mudroom type of feel in the pantry, and then you go around the corner, and then it's like, okay, so there's some built-ins.
This house probably had 1,800 square feet of pantry space.
And then you go through another door of Moore's, and
oh my gosh, I don't even think I went that far.
Then there's like a Harry Potter closet of more closet pantry space. It was just incredible.
Yeah. Did you need 11,000 square feet to live in? Because here's your house.
Yeah, and so well done. So much useful space. There were a couple things I really loved about this house. I love the winding staircase. It's very almost, dare I say, Art Deco in the way that the railing is done.
Very much so.
And there was a couple features upstairs that blew my mind.
The oversized pendant in that staircase made that whole moment come alive.
The gong.
Yeah.
It's so big. I love that.
One of the things I didn't talk about earlier too, that we saw a lot of, were larger reveals on the countertops of all of the vanities in the bathrooms. And so, in looking for either a floating vanity or a custom vanity, the reveal is that part on the front that you see that is typically an inch or an inch and a half. Some people have gone 2 or 3 inches on their countertops, which I don't love in the kitchen, but as a bathroom vanity, it's become a big trend to do a larger reveal for maybe even 6 inches to really show off and showcase the beautiful stone that's on the counter.
One of my favorite things about this house, I'll have to give you this video because I went, is something that I've always wanted to do in my daughter's room. There was a loft inside the bedroom. So you go in, there's this really cool, probably teenager's room.
Yeah.
And then there's a stairway up to this loft above the bathroom. And I was it is so cool with almost like a fireman's ladder, it was just really neat. And I loved the glasswork in the shower. It was kind of like that paned glass. And we're seeing that a lot in kind of that commercial outdoor glass being used for shower surrounds.
And that bathroom also had a tub that they set in the corner, and then they built out the corner.
Yes.
So that you could, again, it was a freestanding tub, but having that little back ledge there allows you to put, I think they put some decor on it and a plant. And it's fun to see some of the different wall textures, and then, the finish work on those, what kind of goes into all of them. But I mean, just exquisite carpentry in every single home. That long hallways with lots of pendants.
A lot of pocket doors. I wouldn't say a ton of them, but we saw a fair amount of pocket doors, which I think are completely underutilized. I know they can be challenging, if you need repairs but.
Now they're making systems of prefabbed pocket doors. Have you seen those?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Wayfair sells them.
Yeah, it was really incredible. I mean, I need some more words, but they know how to live in St. George.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the recipe for a great house is 800 windows.
Yeah.
Just
when in doubt, put more windows.
When in doubt, add more windows. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll be moving to Southern Utah. Anybody else who wants to go on a fractional unit with us just to live in our primary residences.
55 of our closest friends.
We'll make an ended up in Hurricane.
And it's not hurricane, it's hurricane.
It's hurricane. Yeah, you have to know how to
say it
pronounce
right.
it. If you're especially Utah things are weird. There's a whole, there's a whole Utah accent. So maybe we'll have a Utahn on our podcast one day.
Yes, that needs to be a thing.
Yes, very much. All right. Well, I think we talked enough about all the homes. Anything else we forgot?
No, but I'm really excited to hear what people think about some of the houses that we show, what some of their favorite features were. If anybody's been to the St. George show, what their favorite house was. Love to hear some thoughts from other people.
Yeah, so comment down below if you're listening on the podcast. Go to our Instagram pages. I'm Tambourine Home. Megan is Meg Homes. And you can see a bunch of reels that we posted from all the homes that we've talked about on the podcast today.
Yeah, and if you're listening, you can also view this on YouTube. So if you want to see some of the images of the houses and video that we took, you can comment there too.
It's all here. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode of Ended Up in Vegas. We'll see you next time.